gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 19th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Azubi Charles, as we discuss the news of the day, presented today by Caneswear, your destination for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. Caneswear is the largest Miami Hurricane store ever created. You can shop them in person at 2655 South University Drive in Davie or at caneswear.com. And we will talk more about that Caneswear later in the show. But first, guys, today we're doing a lot of grading this week. Okay, it's the midway point of the season. We're taking a hard look at the Miami Hurricanes offense, hard look at the Miami Hurricanes defense. We've got grades on both. And we also today do an analysis of the Miami offense at the midway point of the season as well, and look at guys that need to step it up a little bit. So we're going to talk about all those things here this morning, guys. And let's start with the Hurricanes offense. Been pretty good so far this season. Ranks number 7 in the country in total offense, and certainly a huge improvement over a year ago. Yet they lost 2 games in the last, I guess now we're 10 days, but it was over a 7-day span. They lost 2 games, Matt. There was obviously a lot of attention on the mistakes that Mario Cristobal made at the end of the Georgia Tech game. What went ignored is the pedestrian day that the offense had against Georgia Tech. It was not functioning at its top level. Miami did not score enough points to get sufficient cushion in that game. But in most games this year, the offense has played well. So when you sit down to do an evaluation in total of the body of work through the first 6 games of the year, offensively, what do you come up with?
I don't know why you're yelling at me. You had a little extra pepperoni on your eggs this morning, but I would say that this offense feels like it's not great, but statistically it's great. I don't understand how else to put it. Todd McShay put it perfectly. I think it was yesterday on a show that he did. He's an NFL draft guy. But all the analytics say that Tyler Van Dyke's a top 5 quarterback, right? He's top 5 in passer rating, and in terms of Pro Football Focus, he's top 5 in, not pass rating, I should say grading, passing grade and overall grade. And then he's in the, top 15 for passing yards per game and passing efficiency in the NCAA statistics for all 100 million teams. With that said, there's just a disconnect. Like Todd McShay put it perfectly. He said that, Tyler Van Dyke is a 3rd-day draft pick. Great arm, but he just seems to lock on one guy and just throw it there. And it's very easy for defense coordinators to figure out how to stop him now off of a 2021 season that he said he never progressed from. The weirdness of the offense is I think the reason it seems great to me and not great to me at the same time is because compared to last year, it's great. Compared to the Rhett Lashley offense when Tyler Van Dyke was lighting things up, it probably seems like a little bit of a step down, just if you think about it. There have been a couple of pretty bad game plans, in my opinion, where they just basically said, we can't pass, we'll just run the ball, which isn't great. It doesn't reflect well on Tyler Van Dyke either, or the system that Miami wants to run under Shannon Doss. And the tight ends have completely disappeared from the offense, which, at least under Rhett Lashley, you saw they were being integrated. I mean, they were spreading the field. Rhett Lashley, look, he was great. I'm not saying Shannon Dawson's not great, but it's just different. It doesn't feel as explosive. It doesn't feel as diverse, because really it's Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, and then just running up the middle. Like, that's the offense. And I don't understand quite why the tight ends aren't involved. Ken McCormick got mad at me yesterday when I pointed out what a great blocking tight end he is and asked the kind of impact Elijah Arroyo can have in the passing game. Will this make the tight ends explode now? I'm not a blocking tight end, he says. I laugh when people call me a blocking tight end. I'm a receiving tight end, says the guy with 2 catches and 20 yards, who's never caught many passes in his career other than maybe a few the one year he stayed healthy at Oregon.
Oh.
I mean, that's what he said. Like,
have you ever in your life seen anybody more brutal than Shodell? I mean, now he's ragging on Cam McCormick of all people.
Cam McCormick ragged on me. He ragged on me.
Matt chose violence this morning. He's throwing some haymakers, some subtle haymakers there. But
I mean, look, Cam McCormick obviously is a fantastic receiving tight end. He's proven it, so I'm not going to argue with that. But what I'm saying is, all I'm trying to say is there's a disconnect between the rankings of the offense and how I feel about the offense. I feel like the offense can be so much better than what we've seen. And if you disagree with me, fine. But that's just what I feel like. I'm not going to lie about how I feel. I feel this offense could be so much better and do so much more than just throw to Xavier or Restrepo and run up the middle. That's all. They've done fairly well doing both those things, no doubt about it. But I feel like they could do more. That's all.
Well, you know what? I'm going to agree with you. And yeah, I am. And you know, I felt a little bit better about Tyler Van Dyke until I read Todd McShay's breakdown. And, you know, I wasn't outraged by Todd McShay's breakdown. And, you know, that's on the website, by the way, for you guys to see. You could, we posted it yesterday afternoon. So you could check that out. But Todd McShay did a pretty extensive breakdown of Tyler Van Dyke. And it wasn't very flattering. He said Tyler Van Dyke will be the 9th best quarterback in the draft next year. He says he focuses in on his receivers too much, isn't going through his progressions the way he should, hasn't shown the development 3 years in that you would like to see, and thinks Tyler Van Dyke still has a lot of work to do. And I agree with that. Like, I don't think Tyler Van Dyke has any business going into the National Football League draft at the end of this year. I mean, absolutely do not think he should be doing that. And I hope his agents at the Rosenhaus agency see it that way and don't talk him into doing it, because he does have to continue to progress. And I don't understand why it's not happening more quickly, because you would think now, after all these months of working with Shannon Dawson, you know, last year, fine, there was the disconnect, Frank Ponce, Josh Gaddis, the whole thing, plenty of excuses. But, you know, Tyler's gone to quarterback camps. He's gone around, you know, worked with different people around the country. Yet he is very clearly focusing in on one receiver a lot of the time, and that is often Xavier Restrepo. No argument to that. So that is definitely something that can get better. They haven't been throwing the ball to the tight ends. You're absolutely right, Matt Shodell. I'm not sure it's Cam McCormick's fault. I'm going to side with Cam McCormick in his battle. In the battle of McCormick v. Shodell, I'm taking
That's
McCormick.
not a battle. He
because
could beat me with his little finger. There's no battle.
Well,
I'm having a battle with Cam McCormick.
With his little finger because you're giving him a bad rap. I do feel like he can catch the ball. I just don't think they ever
literally yelled at me.
Throw the damn thing to him.
He yelled at me through the screen, and I said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it." Like, that's
Good,
literally what
I'm
happened.
glad he yelled at you.
Watch the Zoom. You can see me shrivel into the. It was like, you know, I was like, I was out. That was it. I was done. I'm not battling Cam McCormick.
Well, if they throw the ball to him, I personally feel he would catch it. Okay. So, you know, obviously Arroyo coming back. I love Riley Williams, man. You know, I watch Riley Williams running around out there. I think he could be elite.
He's not. He's a true freshman. Let's not get it crazy. He's going to be amazing. He's going to be amazing. But Elijah Arroyo is the guy that should be thrown to, not Riley Williams. I'm sorry, Gary. Okay.
Okay. How about both? Okay. How about both? And they can walk and chew gum. Hello, Jay Collette. Anyway, Jay Collette's one of our viewers, if you didn't remember, Matt. But anyway, so I do think they could be a lot better. No,
by the way, I'm sure you're saying his name wrong, his last name, because I've never heard you pronounce the name correctly. It's Coletti, just so you know. And actually,
Coletti. It's
you roll the L. If you want to say it right, it's Coletti. It's Coletti.
He has been with us at CaneSport since I think like 1990 or something like that, and he deserves a shout out from me every now and then. He was a Prince subscriber of ours back in the day when we were a magazine.
You seem very unsure. I'm going to go with my pronunciation.
He's been with us for a long time. But anyway, he loves that saying, walk and chew gum. But anyway, yes, they could be better. And like I said, I felt pretty good about Van Dyke until I read McShay's analysis, that I said, you know what? This guy's got it right. He's absolutely correct. You can't dispute anything he's saying. Yet, At the same time, they are the number 7 total offense in the nation, which is kind of amazing if you think about it this way.
Does it feel like the number 7 offense, Azubi? Does it feel like that?
No,
Go ahead, Azubi.
It doesn't. It's so weird. It's weird.
It's weird. It's like it looks good on paper, but games aren't won on paper, and we see the product on the field. It's kind of like it's interesting, but yeah, no, number 7 offense. It just doesn't feel like that. Just coming off those last 2 games against Georgia Tech, where he scored 20 points, and then he should have scored 24 points against North Carolina, but you get the touchdown at the end of the game, and it's kind of just like head scratching. And I don't know if Gary Matt said, I feel like the offense is Xavier Strepo and run behind Matt Lee and the 2 guards every single other play. I feel like the offense kind of lost its creativity and its spark and its funness, if that's even a word. I feel like versus Texas A&M, that was the peak, and Shannon Dawson got everybody so excited and kind of set the bar so high, and there hasn't been anything much after that game. So on paper, beautiful number 7 offense in the country, but on the field, it's kind of just like, making you want more from this offense, making more players want to get involved, just spicing things up a little bit. Because I feel like the last 2 games, the game plans have kind of been real stale and real flavorless. So hopefully he adds some, season and starts cooking up a little bit more, adding the tight ends, adding some running back passes out the backfield, some screens, maybe a little bit of other stuff. But yeah, number 7, in the country, but on the field, it doesn't really look like that.
Azubi,
give us a little garlic salt.
So negative, Azubi.
Give us a little garlic salt, Shannon Dawson. Let's go, man.
When Azubi
I'll tell you one thing I noticed.
When Azubi says something remotely like negative, it's the truth, because Azubi is the happiest, most positive person in the world. Literally, I urge everybody watching this, whenever Azubi says anything that is even remotely critical of anything, like, that's real. That's real. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's real.
Okay, Matt, this isn't an endorsement on Tinder or Hinge, okay? This is Good Morning CaneSport here, all right?
The fact that you know what Hinge is means your wife should be very scared right now. People your age should not know what Hinge
I'm not
is.
gonna. I'll let it. I'm not gonna tell how I know what Hinge is. I'm not gonna go there. But there's a special story behind that. Anyway.
Wow. How do you say that and then not tell the story? That's even worse.
It's up to Azubi. Azubi told me about Hinge. Anyway, and I don't think he wants to tell the story. But anyway, getting back to Canes football. One thing I have noticed, I thought the O-line did not have legs.
Did Azubi answer an ad and then find you waiting at the bar stool? Is that what happened?
Not quite. Anyway, it looked to me like the O-line did not have legs up at North Carolina. I thought they looked tired. They didn't have explosion. They weren't really opening holes. I thought Henry Parrish missed a couple, but for the most part, there wasn't a lot of movement up front. It was a very station to station when it came to the running game from Miami. They weren't getting big plays in the ground game. To me, that was a big deal. I was wondering, man, maybe Mario is working these linemen too hard, because the D line was getting killed too. They didn't really have legs under them either in this game. They had not. Now maybe they're weak like they showed at North Carolina. Maybe that's the real them, but that's not what we had seen, guys, in the prior weeks. I mean, they were number 1 in the country, I think, in rush defense for a while there. It might have been full of baloney and not a real stat because they hadn't really been tested, but they were getting pushed around by North Carolina on both sides of the ball. And that got me thinking, okay, we have not seen this year. Why are they getting pushed around so much physically at the line of scrimmage? Could they be working too hard in practice and just not have their legs the way they need them for game day? What do you think, Matt? Is that an excuse?
I mean, that sounds like a Matt Shodell theory, because that's something that I've espoused in the past. But in this particular case, I don't think that. I mean, look, last year, Kevin Steele used a very heavy rotation on the defensive line. This year, there's no doubt missing Akeem Messidor. Like, nobody's talking about that. That is a huge, huge difference up front. But the reason we haven't seen the defensive line get pushed around, and Gary got it wrong, as usual, he's focusing only on the defensive line. The reason Miami was ranked number 1 in run defense before this game was because the safeties are pushing up. They're going 1 high safety. They're having the linebackers all in the box. They're going 6-7 in the box all the time. They're daring other teams to throw, and they're saying, we're going to stop the run. And they did that in this game also. Now, did they get winded a bit? I mean, coaches will tell you they did. I didn't see, usually when players are winded on the defensive line, you'll see them hunched over with their hands on their knees between reps trying to catch their breath. I didn't see that. I just think they were out physical. I don't think they were getting worked too hard at all in practice. Like I didn't see guys hands on knees out of breath. So like to me,
Leonard Taylor went 38, I think 35, 36 snaps.
Yeah, but exactly. It's just they weren't good enough. They weren't prepared for what North Carolina did. And honestly, I understand they want to throw the players somewhat under the bus and say, you know what, they were tired. They arm tackled, whatever. The whole team missed 9 tackles the whole game.
It's ridiculous.
The defensive scheme, it was clear watching the game that they weren't getting the calls in, even though they insist the calls were in, because it reflects badly on the coaching staff if they didn't get the calls in. It's embarrassing. And the other aspect of this is now this week, all of a sudden, all the players are telling, every defensive player is now in these Zoom interviews we do now, because God forbid we go back on campus after somebody spotted Tyler Van Dyke's leg apparently amputated. All that these players on defense get asked in the Zooms the last couple of days has been, how are you preparing for the pace offense? That is Clemson going to run the pace offense? And they're all like, yeah. Clemson's had a bye week. They saw what North Carolina did to us. So now we're preparing for the hurry-up offense. Like all North Carolina has done is succeed running to the line and snapping the ball. Like you saw it against Syracuse the week before. I still don't grasp the concept of why coaches now are focused on the pace offense when North Carolina runs one of the fastest, gets to the line after a run play and snap it than anybody.
Last week.
They screwed up, but just own it. Like to me, again, Lance Guidry didn't own it as much as he should have. I know he said whatever, the players were winded or something. I don't know. But I didn't feel like he owned it enough. I don't care. The past is the past. I just want them to be ready.
9 months of off-season workouts. 9 months of off-season workouts.
They're in condition. He could say they're winded.
How can they be out of shape?
Watch the tape. Leonard Taylor might be out of shape, but the rest of the defensive line
has to work. Under Mario, must work as hard as any team in the country.
The defensive line was not. No matter what they say, they didn't look winded to me. They just got out physicaled, and coaches don't like to say that out loud.
And they weren't getting lined up.
Once you say our defensive front was out physicaled, every other team is just going to be freaking pounding them to death every game, like saying we could do it too. And they get a lot of, it sort of gives juice to the other team when they can say, oh yeah, they were North Carolina out physical. We're going to do the same thing. It gives that offensive line juice. And by saying, oh, they're just winded, we're going to, it's not going to be the case. We'll have a different rotation, whatever. Like it makes them seem at least out in the ether of the social media, like, hey, we can fix it. Don't try it, don't try it. And we'll find out a lot against Clemson, because if there was the same fiasco with the defensive play calls and just some of the stuff we saw on defense this last game against Clemson, I mean, that's not going to be a good sign for Lance Guidry's future with Mario Cristobal, because Mario can put up with one game where a guy gets a stupid, the defensive coordinator gets the stupidest penalty you've ever seen because he didn't see where literally the ref was standing there holding up the play and he didn't see it and started freaking out, throwing his headset down, and then just not getting calls in and not having his team prepared for the hurry up. Like that can happen once. If that happens again, it will not end well for Lance Guidry. Like he better fix it, which is why Mario is so great. His assistant coaches should be scared of him. He will make changes. Other coaches want to be your friend. Manny Diaz, Al Golden, like they wanted to be everybody's friend. They weren't going to fire anybody they didn't have to fire to save their own butts. Mario Cristobal will fire people not to save his own butt, but to make the team better. And that's why I think Mario Cristobal is such a great head coach. Not a good game day coach, but a great coach in terms of I'm not afraid to make changes. I'm not afraid to get rid of players that aren't doing the right things. And I'm not afraid to be the best head coach recruiter who's tireless out there in the world, like trying to get everybody 5 stars, 4 stars, guys nobody knows about, et cetera, et cetera.
You mentioned Manny Diaz. He's got the number 1 defense in the country right now at Penn State. Big game this weekend against Ohio State. Doing well as a defensive coordinator. Didn't do so well as a head coach. But anyway, so we graded everybody on offense, and Matt spearheaded that project. And I'm going to tell you something, man, for as negative as you are, I thought you were pretty generous with these grades. I mean, we just got done sitting here talking about all the ways the offense can get better, but based on these grades, I'm not going to give them all away because I want to let everybody read the story that's on the website, but you're pretty generous.
How do you give a C to the number 7 overall offense? How do you can't do it. I mean, you have to at some point be level-headed and just be normal about this. Like they're not A's, right? Like Tyler Van Dyke's not an A, but he's not a C. the running game has been pretty good other than 2 fumbles. You know, it's not an A, but it's pretty close. Offensive line's been probably the strength of the entire offense, although they faltered, you know, fairly badly, I thought, against North Carolina. You know, I think Tyler was hurried 14 times and sacked 3 times, and I mean, hit. So it wasn't great. But Clemson's going to be the big test. This is the best defense Miami's going to face, period. This is a much better defense than North Carolina's defense. It's a much better defense than Florida State's defense. It's the best defense, most talented defense, front to back, that Miami will play all year. And we're going to learn a lot. Just like last week was Lance Guidry's big test, and he pretty much failed it. This is Shannon Dawson's big test, and he better pass it, because we need to see these coordinators that take it to the other team and not take a beating from the other team. Like, that needs to start happening at some point. And what better time than against Clemson at home in an 8 p.m. game off 2 losses? Get the momentum back going again, man. Can't lose 3 in a row for the 13th time in 18 years. You just can't.
Zuby, you've taken a hard look at that Clemson defense. What does Miami need to do to move the ball on Saturday?
Be creative, honestly, because this season, and we've seen it previously, you know, the strength of this kind of Clemson team has been their defense. And, you know, they've got guys from the front to linebacker to the secondary that are just all solid players, you know, kind of led by Jeremiah Trotter, the linebacker, junior guy. And then up front, they've got Xavier Thomas, and they got a freshman defensive lineman, TJ Parker, that leads the team in sacks. And, you know, just from top to bottom, they're just a very sound defense. And they've kept them in a lot of games this year, you know, versus Wake Forest. Their previous game, they had some struggles on offense, but that defense just, you know, kept them in there, kept the game alive. I believe on their first drive, Clemson fumbled the ball inside, you know, their own 10-yard line, and their defense holds Wake Forest to a field goal. So this is a defense that, you know, isn't going to, you know, you can rely on if you make mistakes and things like that. And just from top to bottom, this is a very sound defense. Number 5 in total yards allowed, you know, this season in the country, very sound. You know, 44 tackles for loss, 15 sacks this year. They get to the ball. They play sound in the secondary. They're not going to make, you know, big mistakes or, you know, have, you know, glimpses or blunders like we've seen Miami have this season. So it's going to take a real sound game from Miami, real creative play calling from Shannon Dawson. He needs to show something that he hasn't shown before. Hopefully it's, you know, the involvement of the tight ends, or just it's something different, because this isn't a team where you can target Xavier Restrepo 1,000 times and run the ball up the middle 1,000 times and come over with the win. Even, you know, Dabo Sweeney said it. He said, hey, these guys have a lot of good receivers, but, you know, they usually focus on number 7 and kind of force number 7 the ball. So if a head coach of the other team is saying that already, you know, before the game started, I feel like that's something that you kind of have to try to stay away from, because if he knows, his whole entire team knows. And we've seen, you know, Tyler Van Dyke, you know, obviously target Xavier Restrepo a lot more than some of these wide receivers. So just something different. I feel like that's going to be the biggest thing that, you know, Miami needs to do this week against Clemson to have success.
I think they miss Mark Fletcher a lot. You know, I think the running game had a different look to it when Mark Fletcher was part of the rotation. Hopefully, maybe he can get back this week. You know, maybe we'll see. But I know that they were hopeful that he might be able to, but Mario didn't talk about injuries, so we don't know for sure. But you know, we'll see what happens there on Saturday. Matt's shaking his head, and he could be right. But you know, they need him back. You know, he gave the running game a little bit of a different look. I think they also need a little bit more versatility in the passing game. Got to get those tight ends into the mix. They're good, and they can help a lot. And you know, they are spreading the ball around to the receivers. I mean, Jacoby George had the best game of his career the other night. So even though Restrepo's getting a large number of the targets, other receivers are getting opportunities. Brashard Smith got some opportunities the other day. Shout out to Kevin Beard. He is doing a great job coaching those guys. They are all showing up better this year than in the past. You know, Josh Horton's another one. So that reflects on Kevin Beard. He's doing a nice job coaching that position. All right. So we also take a look at the Miami defense today. We grade the Miami defense at the midpoint of the season. You know, Matt, you talked about Messidor. I agree with you. Missing Messidor has been massive for the greater part of this season. I also think that Leonard Taylor not stepping up and Nigel Lee Kelly being hurt early and not stepping up is a real big deal, as you know, holding the defense back a little bit, even though it is number 18 in the country. As we said, Matt, why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts about the Miami defense?
Well, do you want me to start with the good one, the good or the bad, the disappointments or the guys I'm happy with?
But whatever you want.
All right. Well, you know me, I'm starting with the bad. So I thought Nigel Kelly was my pick for. Don't be laughing, Azubi. I was being serious. I love starting with the bad. I mean, after the bad, things will only be better after that. So I thought Nigel Kelly was going to lead the team in sacks. He's got 1, so he's on pace for 2 for the whole year, right? With the midway points, so that's not terrible. No, but he was banged up, but you expect more from him. Honestly, I want to say Ruben Bain's a surprise, only because he's a true freshman. We knew that he was going to be good, but to have a true freshman probably be the guy at this point we think is going to lead the team in sacks, that's remarkable. Crazy. That's remarkable. Crazy. This guy, he'll be here for 3 years and he'll be gone, but he is a remarkable player. I mean, really off the charts. And Messidor will come back next year, I assume now, right? He sort of will have to. And you have Messidor, Bain, and I don't think Leonard Taylor can leave now either. I mean, those 3 guys. Again, this is about 2024 for me now because I'm off 2023. Those 3 guys alone, plus Nigel Kelly on this defensive line in 2024. Good luck to other teams trying to drop back.
Hopefully, Josh Porton.
This is why I keep saying 2024 they're going to win 10 games. I mean, their defensive line is going to be sick. They're going to be the best defensive line in the conference, in my opinion. I haven't looked at the other teams. I'm assuming they'll be the best. They'll be the best in the country because I haven't looked at any of the other teams for next year. But no, this defensive line next year is going to be amazing. If they can get a couple of these freshman linebackers to be really ready to play, because the linebacker's been just such a weak area. Francisco Mauigoa, fans are like, oh, he's playing so great. Yeah, he's playing great compared to Cloyd and Basainth, but he's an average to slightly above average linebacker for what Miami needs at middle linebacker. I mean, the guy in 6 games has like 28 tackles, less than a handful of tackles for loss, or maybe a handful of tackles for loss, something like that. He's grading out, I think, in the 60s, maybe low 70s. Like, he's okay, but they need better than that. Miami's linebacker position has been down ever since those guys left, ever since Quarterman, Pinckney, and I know McLeod stayed forever, but when those 3 guys were at linebacker together, that was the last decent linebacker core across the board that Miami had. They need to get back to that desperately. These 4 freshmen, they need 2 of those guys to step up and start next year because I don't like any of these guys. Basainth has been a real disappointment to me. I thought he was going to make such a big jump up. If anything, it's been a sideways move for him. He just doesn't look right. And I thought he was going to be so good in this aggressive defense. He's been just okay, which is why Cloyd wound up starting over him. Not that Cloyd's terrible, but those 3 guys are okay. They're nothing great. In the secondary, James Williams and Cam Kinchens, if both those guys go pro, that's where the transfer portal needs to happen because I don't see anyone behind them. You don't want to start a true freshman safety. That doesn't work. Transfer portal, as much as I hate it, for safety next year. You need 2 starting safeties in the portal next year because I think both those guys leave. And both those guys are doing great this year. I mean, great. I know Cam Kinchens was grading out at 90% last year. He's at 70% this year. He took a step back. Other teams aren't
doing great.
Other teams aren't going his way. He's made some mistakes.
They've had busts the last 2 weeks.
Yes, he's made some mistakes. There's no doubt about it. He has. He's made some mistakes. But he's Cam Kinchens. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. He's great. And James Williams has been playing, I thought, a lot better for the most part than last year. He had, he was frustrated last game.
Still a linebacker.
He's got to stop getting frustrated. Yeah, he's a linebacker. He's a linebacker playing safety, but he's so athletic and good, it doesn't matter. He's making a difference at safety. I don't care. Cornerbacks, they got to do better. They just got to do better. Manny Diaz, his defense is doing great because he's got cornerbacks that can cover. He can blitz. He can do anything he wants aggressively and not have to worry about guys breaking free on his corners and his single high safety or whatever he does back there because those guys are great. Miami needs great cornerbacks if Lance Guidry's going to be the defensive coordinator, period. These guys are okay. They're not good enough. Corey Couch has given up, 65% passing against him. Jaden Davis has been burned multiple times deep. Darryl Porter Jr., surprisingly, has been the most solid of the 3, and I would have picked before the year him to not even be starting. I would have said maybe Jadeus Richard over him. So Darryl Porter's actually been a pleasant surprise to me. But there's no depth. There's just no depth. You hope some of these guys next year will be ready. Maybe a Damari Brown. Devontae Brown's been a disappointment. Many people when he transferred in said he'll be starting. No, he hasn't been ready. And he's played like 100 reps. He's been okay, but maybe a little less than okay. So they need to do better. They brought in 1 million corners in the transfer portal. And guess how many of those transfers they brought in are starting?
They made you look good.
0. They're bringing 0.
It kills me that they've made you look good.
I told you back then. I said this is desperation. Like, what are you going to get in cornerback right now in the portal?
He called it, Azubi. I got to give him credit.
Of course, I called it. How could I ever be wrong? So I think that's the whole defense. So yeah, if they can get a couple of safeties in the portal that are free agents, if they can somehow develop a Damari Brown, maybe even a Demetrius Freeney, maybe sign a free agent, right, at cornerback. That's the key, because I think those linebacker freshmen, I think 2 of them will be ready. So if you just get that help in the back end, you've got probably the best defensive line in the conference. I mean, that will make this defense unstoppable. This will be a Manny Diaz level defense. Woohoo! Manny Diaz level defense, everybody. We're going to be there next year. Let's go.
Wow. I think Clemson's going to come in Saturday looking to run the football. They're going to take a look at what North Carolina did in the run game, and they're going to say, that's what we got to replicate. They'll be tempted by the pass coverage issues that we've seen the last couple of weeks, but I think their bread and butter is going to be running the football. Azubi, you've taken a deep dive into that Clemson offense. Am I right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be their bread and butter heading to the game. And, they have Will Shipley back there, who I believe has been their starting running back for the past 3 years. And, usually, we look at Clemson teams and we see, great wide receivers, a T. Higgins or, guys down the line from the previous years, but they don't really have that really standout guy this year. So they've kind of relied on Will Shipley a little bit more. He does a lot out of the backfield, catching passes too. But I do have to agree with you. I think they're going to try to pound the ball with Will Shipley, after seeing the success that North Carolina had last week too. And, Cade Klubnik, their quarterback, can run the ball a little bit as well. So probably see him with a couple QB reads. He keeps the ball, adds a little bit of dynamic to that run game. But I really do think that's kind of going to be their bread and butter, because they haven't had as much success as they thought they were going to have this year through the air. They're bringing Garrett Riley from TCU, who did an amazing job last year as their offense coordinator. Not as, prolific as a lot of people expected. So it's kind of been, all right, let's go back to what we know how to do. We're going to pound the rock to run the ball with Will Shipley. And, he's done his part this year, 450 rushing yards on the ground through 6 games. So I do think they're going to come in and really, really test that Miami Hurricanes run defense. And I feel like that's kind of going to be one of the big keys to the game. Can they slow it down after, what we saw last week, and then get back on track, of being one of the quote unquote best, rushing defenses in the country. So that's going to be a big storyline that I watched throughout that game.
All right, so we've got the breakdowns of the offense and the defense. Check those out. We also have player updates today heading into the Clemson game with Xavier Restrepo and Nez Cooper and Darryl Porter Jr. all talking about this weekend's big matchup against Clemson. So check those out as well. We have a couple more stories that we'll mention to you today, but first I got to take a moment here, guys, and talk to you about Caneswear. And Caneswear is the biggest Miami Hurricane store ever created. There it is. That's just a section of their store, but you could just see how packed with merchandise Caneswear is. They've moved down the same shopping plaza that you became accustomed to visiting in past years, and now they have the largest selection of Miami Hurricanes gear in town, more gear than you could ever imagine. We're talking T-shirts, jerseys, polos, hoodies, hats, flags, decals, and magnets. They have all sizes for men, women, kids, babies. They will even dress your pet if you go to Caneswear. You want to tailgate at the Clemson game this weekend, they can hook you up with tables, chairs for all your needs, and of course can decorate those tables for you. Caneswear even has gear for the Dolphins, the Panthers, and Inter Miami Soccer as well. So if you go to the games of those other teams, you can get dressed up by way of Caneswear for them as well. Caneswear is more than a store. It's an experience, and they're located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, right next to La Spada Sub Shop. I'll give them a shout out again because their subs are so damn good. You can knock 2 birds with 1 stone off, get a great sub, and go shopping at Caneswear all at the same time. So go to Caneswear, 2655 South University Drive in Davie. Visit them online 24/7, 365 at caneswear.com. You will not be sorry. Caneswear will have you looking like a fresh Canes fan. So check out Caneswear as soon as you get a chance, either in person or online. All right, let me touch on a few recruiting stories that we have on the website today. The Canes are expected to host a bunch of prospects for Saturday's game against Clemson. One of them will be 2025 safety Anquan Fagans. He's the number 34 overall prospect in the 2025 recruiting cycle. He will be there. You can see what he's saying in advance of that. We got a story with Jacksonville Mandarin, 3-star O-lineman Derek Plaz. He's a Miami commit. He will be back this weekend for the Clemson game. He shares his thoughts going into that one. We also have a story on Goodman, Mississippi Holmes Community College 4-star offensive lineman Markel Bell. He's a December JUCO graduate, getting a lot of interest from programs like Alabama, Oklahoma, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Miami. Canes are making a big effort there. We've got an update on that. We got an update with 2025 4-star linebacker Nathaniel Owusu Boateng. He's been a popular target for top programs around the country. Miami is finding ways to stand out. You can read about that. We talked to Miami commit Marquise Lightfoot as well. He'll be back this weekend. Ohio State's trying to get in there. Marquise tells us how that's going. And we also have our weekly tracking the commits feature with stats and highlights from the Miami commits over the weekend. So Azubi, another big recruiting weekend this weekend. A lot of guys will be coming in for the Clemson game off this 2-game losing streak that Miami is trying to survive here and reverse and not become the 13th team in the last 19 years to lose 3 games in a row. What's the mindset right now of recruits, both committed and uncommitted, with the recent struggles of the team?
Yeah, so most of the guys that I've spoken to just really want to see how Miami's going to respond to the adversity of dropping these 2 games that were very, winnable games. And, from the commits to the uncommitted guys, they really want to see Miami come out and have a dominant showing, come out and beat a Clemson team that has, gave it to Miami the past decade since, most of these kids were in elementary school. So a lot of people really, really do want to see Miami, bounce back. How will they respond? Obviously, the North Carolina game was a chance for Miami to kind of right their wrongs, but, didn't go their way. So this is another big opportunity, another night game, another game that we expect a ton of more recruits to kind of show up and names to pop up, as we get closer to Saturday. So a really big, recruiting weekend for Miami. I feel like this is one of, if not the biggest, just because, Miami's coming off 2 straight losses. It's against a Clemson team and a bunch of other factors. So another huge recruiting weekend for Mario Cristobal and those guys. And if they come away with a win, this could be huge for their momentum on the recruiting trail as we get closer to December and signing day.
All right, so that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport this morning. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you're watching this show on YouTube, hit your subscribe and like buttons. That'll help us with the algorithms at YouTube and growing our audience. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, we got the big game special going on the website right now. Check that out. Please come on board and join our CaneSport family. We got a great community of fans. We do our best that we can do every single day to enhance your fan experience with our coverage. Please, if you're not yet a subscriber, jump on board and join CaneSport.com. So for Matt Shodell and Zuby Charles, I'm Gary Ferman. Have a great day, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.